Welcome to Overwatch This. This is Jeff from the Overwatch team. Let's have fun today.
Hello YouTube, Rich from PCGamesN here, and I'm joined by Ben.
Hello.
And welcome to episode 48 of Overwatch This, our weekly look at all things Overwatch. And kicking us off this week, latest news, patch 115 is now live.
Yeah, I mean, you were right about this yesterday and many other days before, but yeah, Mercy's changed significantly, D.va's changed perhaps slightly less significantly, there's a new map. All of that, I'm sure you are basically sick of listening to people talk about by this point, if you're into your Overwatch. So, you know, go play it, go see what you think. There was a bunch of kind of bugs being fixed and stuff last night. Mercy is getting a lot of kind of back and forth onto whether the changes were good or not. I'm glad that they're willing to make those kind of scale of changes, whether they're actually, you know, good for the game or are going to stay that way. I don't know. I can't see into the future. However, the first pro matches are actually in a couple of days.
Okay.
There's a couple of rounds of the Apex Season 4, the Korean tournament with all the best teams. So we'll get to see how they play out during that. See if I would expect to see Mercy pick. To be honest, I think she's pretty strong in the way she's been changed.
Yeah, for sure.
And maybe D.va will see a little bit of play as well. But yeah, that'll be super cool to see. And hopefully all the bugs are kind of be done by then. They've had to disable like some Mercy skins and stuff because the voice lines weren't working and that sort of thing. So that's what is going on with the patch. We've kind of talked about that to death.
Quite a lot, I would imagine. Yeah.
So what we want to do is we're going to go forward. We're going to look at the timeline into BlizzCon. Okay. So what I've done is I kind of worked out each week that is between now and BlizzCon, which actually there isn't that many left. It's about 6 left. And we've gone, okay, so what's likely to happen here, what's likely to happen here, based on what happened last year and what happens normally with BlizzCon, and what we know about kind of the way that Overwatch is developed.
So, let's kick us off. Next week, week beginning September 25th, what do you reckon is going to happen then?
So I think we're going to get another PTR. This will either be announced at the end of this week, sometimes they announce these on Fridays now, or it will be announced like halfway through next week, something like that. That'll be patch 1.16. I expect like not a lot of balanced stuff in this, like no kind of major character reworks, no Mercies, no Divas. Maybe like, oh, we've decided that Reinhardt's shield needs to be a little less strong, or like, you know, some numbers getting tweaked, some damage numbers or whatever. Maybe targeting some of the lesser used characters at the highest levels. But I wouldn't expect it to be like a huge batch of balance changes unless they have to do something fairly significant to combat issues that have come up since
as a result of this,
because of, so maybe you'll see Mercy get nerfed or D.va get buffed or something like that, depending on exactly how those guys shake out. But what I would expect it to be is stuff like the spectator system that we've been promised like a number of different times. They said that was delayed by trying to fight against the toxicity and that sort of thing. But I expect that is still something that, you know, they've been working on for a while, and there are dedicated teams for that. I'd also expect to see stuff like the play of the game improvements that people have talked about. If that doesn't include some sort of like co-op play of the game where, you know, you shoot your Zarya ult and I hit it with my Pharah ult, we'll see both perspectives of that at some point during that. Exactly how they're going to do it, I don't know. There's been plenty of ways that people have suggested on Reddit and that sort of thing over time, where they've gone, oh, you know, you could split screen it, or you could just flip between the two, or whatever. And that'd be really, really cool to see, and I think that's something that people will be very, very excited about. Obviously, during this patch, you know, there won't be any new maps, there won't be any new heroes, nothing of that sort of scale that they would normally announce at a large event, because we have BlizzCon coming up a few weeks later.
That'll definitely be the opportunity for that.
Yeah, exactly. And we'll get onto that in a second, because there's actually been some stuff about that. But we'll get to that at the end of the episode. I'd also expect to see a few more blue posts, usually between one PTR being taken down and the actual patch being released and the next PTR going up. We get a larger number of blue posts than normal, stuff from Jeff Goodman especially, talking about, you know, whatever they want to tweak and that sort of thing. I mean, you're very familiar with this whenever you have to do the news.
I look forward to writing it all up in our patch 116 post.
Yeah, exactly. So, you know, you'll see that from us. So that's why we expect next week basically a new PTR, but very focused on like non-balanced changes.
The week after that would be October the 2nd.
Yeah.
Not a massive amount, I would imagine, going on this week.
No, so this is kind of, there's a couple of weeks that might just be total gaps. But now the reason that I think this is a reasonable thing to do, this timeline is a reasonable thing to do, is actually if you go back about 2 or 3 years now, Blizzard have had a major thing to announce every single like non-holiday week for a significant period. Basically, since they kind of released Overwatch and announced Overwatch and had Hearthstone and had Heroes and all that sort of thing, they've had major things to do. Overwatch itself has basically had something every single week. Now, usually, sometimes it is very, very small, like an announcement of announcement or something like that. Or, there are weeks where there is a gap because, hey, Legion came out or something like that, right? But, so what I would expect to see next week is an announcement of the Halloween event.
Right.
What happened last year was it released on October the 11th, which would be the week after next week. Or, sorry, the week after the October 2nd week. It also... that they have announced these beforehand. They announced that the Summer Games is coming back beforehand. Usually they give it like a couple of days, kind of let the hype build a little bit, and so they can kind of start having a few days of teasers. They can go, oh, here's one new skin or whatever, and they can kind of keep that rolling for a little bit. Also, the Halloween event is definitely coming back. Probably their most successful event, certainly the one that had the most hype at the time.
Yeah, for sure.
The skins that people love the most are in there, stuff like Witch Mercy.
And the game mode people were stoked about.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. So I would expect to see that on the week of October 2nd. So yeah, that's kind of a gap week. It would just be like an announcement of that, and then some PTR development still ongoing. Tweaks and the back and forth communication we usually see surrounding that.
Cool. Probably some data mining, although that's nothing to do with Blizzard. But
yeah, exactly.
We can expect to see a lot of that.
I'd be surprised if they don't kind of factor into their announcement schedule. Okay, how long does it take people to find stuff? What kind of stuff do we expect them to find in this patch?
It happens so much that people they must be making allowances for it at some point. Okay, cool. And then October 9th, you reckon if the schedule sticks the same as last year?
That's when the Halloween event would be. Not on October 9th itself, that's the Monday.
But during that week.
Probably during that week. Either, again, on the 11th, that would be the Wednesday, or on the 10th, which is the Tuesday, which is when they usually kind of release these kinds of things.
Cool.
It's possible they could delay this a week, and I could, kind of have this off a bit, but that's what I would expect to see. As for what's in the Halloween event this year, same sort of thing they did with summer skins, new skins, old skins, discounted to the normal, legendary price. And all of that stuff brought back so you can get them again. This will also be, I think it was for the Halloween event they made it so you could buy skins initially. So it's not like this is the first time you'll be able to buy those skins, but it will be the cheapest they've been for a while. Plenty of people will have joined the game between Halloween last year and now. I think the game definitely wasn't at its peak by Halloween last year. It was certainly the point where it had the most hype surrounding it.
Yeah.
But I think it will have grown a little bit since then. So there'll be plenty of people that have never done that stuff before. What also came with Halloween last year was the Junkinstein event.
Yep.
Now that was the first time we had any PvE stuff. Since then we had the Uprising event, for example. We've had plenty of other kind of weird game modes that have been put in since then. I would expect a pretty significant expansion on Junkinstein. People really, really loved it last time.
They did, yeah.
But it was just kind of a wave defense thing.
Yeah, it was also like the thing people loved about the Summer Games event, the Uprising event was it was a lore delivery mechanism, right? And Junkenstein's Revenge was this weird sort of spin-off thing. So.
Yeah, and there's no, there isn't anything they can do with Junkenstein's to be super serious with it and tell any stories within the universe. We've had a comic release recently, for example, when it comes to that sort of thing. And as I'll say in a minute, I think we'll see a little bit more of that going into BlizzCon as well. But what they will do is expand that. At the very least, the map will be bigger because actually it was a pretty simple event. There was the gate, and then you fought stuff that came towards the gate, and the map was very, very small. So I would expect to see that expanded. What we might even see is more maps added to it. So it would be you play different phases of it or something along those lines.
Kind of like what COD did in Black Ops 2 with the Zombies mode, where the bus travels around a series of stages. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, so I could see something like that happening because that would be a little bit different from Uprising, where it was all on one map, but it was various stages. This could be lots of smaller maps, which I think would make a lot of sense and be a bit different. So yeah, I would expect to see that week.
That might be pretty fun.
Yes,
and your chance to get hold of Witch Mercy.
Yes, exactly.
Finally. And then the week after that would be October 16th.
Yes. So this would be when the PTR that was released 3 weeks previously would actually go live. So that's when patch 1.16 would come out. Lots of back-end stuff, like I was talking about. Not a lot of kind of content. Not a lot of balance changes and that sort of thing, but it's sort of made up for by the fact that you've got the Halloween event running. And, lots of new skins.
That makes sense for plugging a gap.
Slightly different. Yeah, exactly, yeah. So... 116, if I'm right and if what they've hinted at is correct, we were talking about spectator stuff and kind of back-end stuff and esports focused stuff and kind of prepping the game to be, in a good place going forward as they do more esports stuff, particularly at BlizzCon and also going into the rest of the year. So what I would also see during that time is the virtual ticket is ongoing. We have some stuff on the site about what's going on with that. Basically, they're releasing weekly videos all the way up to BlizzCon. Some of those will be Overwatch focused, so you can expect some content about the game there. It's going to be kind of behind the scenes stuff, not very forward facing, not very about what's happening in the game right now. but it is stuff that you can show to people and be like, hey, here's some Overwatch stuff to kind of tide you over. Because again, this, while it would be a patch release week, and that is a big deal, it would be a little quieter in terms of, you know, stuff that actually gets people super excited.
Yeah, well, the Halloween event presumably still ongoing.
Yeah.
Then you're predicting that's basically the same for the week after, October 23rd.
Yeah, so again, this is where I would think about it as a bit of a gap week. So this is the week before BlizzCon. Things get mighty quiet the week before BlizzCon.
For sure.
Like, everyone is working on making sure that like all the stuff they have for BlizzCon is 100% sorted out. Obviously, they're also now working fairly hard on stuff for early 2018, whatever their Christmas events are, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So there isn't a lot of bandwidth, particularly during that week, to get things out there all the time. However, it is also the last week for financially relevant announcements before the conference call, like the Activision Blizzard quarterly, here's how we did and here's our plans for the next quarter call. That usually happens slightly before BlizzCon. Now, interestingly, the timing of BlizzCon this year is quite early. It's not usually quite, because it's always the first weekend of November, at least at the moment. But usually the first weekend of November is after like the first Wednesday of November or the first Thursday of November, which is usually when they do their quarterly call. So it's possible that this year we'll see that quarterly call be after BlizzCon, which it isn't normally. However, those kind of financially relevant stuff, and we're kind of talking really high level esports stuff, extra Overwatch League teams, their plans in terms of, you know, very wide ranging, maybe announcing stuff like new divisions, like when they announced that they were making these movie and film divisions that then kind of turned into the Hearthstone stuff that we saw at Gamescom. Those sort of announcements usually don't happen at BlizzCon because they're a bit in-depth. They aren't really announcing anything.
Yeah, they sort of feel like one of our editors here has a term, insider baseball.
Yeah, exactly.
Very, very inwardly focused.
Yeah, it's like a very business decision. It's something that isn't made for a fan event. So those sort of announcements I could see happening that week, or indeed, you know, in the weeks leading up to the October 23rd week, because that is kind of that lets you kind of announce something, and you can spin that stuff. Like particularly, you know, Overwatch League teams, people are interested in seeing that, even if it is very high level business stuff. People are interested in seeing that. It is again content for the wider audience, but it isn't perhaps appropriate to get into. To get into BlizzCon itself.
Sure. And then that leads us up to actual BlizzCon week, October 30th.
Yeah.
Lots, presumably, to discuss about this, right?
Yeah,
what do you expect to see?
So I'm not going to talk specifically about what we'll see at BlizzCon, because honestly, that is a fool's errand until you've seen the schedule. We should see the schedule fairly soon. And again, like the schedule announcement of what's happening at BlizzCon and when fits into that one of those weeks prior, and again could be something to fill the October 23rd week, or one of the other ones to get more content out there. But in the lead up, I expect to see a new PTR patch before BlizzCon actually happens. This would be small stuff that they don't want to dedicate a whole stage to, like balance changes. While Overwatch is a very, very popular game, if they're going to be announcing new maps or like very significant Overwatch League stuff, or like here's the start date and here's what we're doing, that stuff, saying at the end of that, oh, and by the way, we're increasing May's damage by 5%, like it just isn't the same tier of news.
Yeah, for sure.
So they can get all that out of the way early, and they can just be like, oh, okay, here's the new PTR patch. It doesn't have whatever it is that they're announcing at BlizzCon, but it does have balance tweaks for that patch, and by then we'll definitely be seeing fallout from the patch we've just had, as well as seeing how that affects the meta and what heroes then need to be nerfed or buffed in response to that. So that's what I would expect to see there. As far as actual BlizzCon goes, Jeff Kaplan said in an interview very recently with IGN that the next hero wasn't as soon as people thought it was going to be.
Yeah,
that to me says it's not a BlizzCon. And
that's
the BlizzCon
probably a fair conclusion to draw out.
Yeah, so I would still expect it to be before the end of the year, but I think they have they can announce that whenever they like. It could be kind of Christmas themed announcement. Maybe it's a character that fits into being shown in that way. Maybe it's snow focused or something like that. And then what that does mean is that BlizzCon would have probably a new map, maybe new modes, and be very heavily focused on esports. However, the other thing about BlizzCon this year is it's very much a WoW year. It's expected to see the new WoW expansion announced there. Sure. Even if it isn't, it would be the focus of the show because of kind of everything that's happened around it, and it would be very weird for it not to have WoW as the focus. And if it isn't WoW, it must be something else fairly large, like a new game or something along those lines, I would expect. So
fairly large.
What that means is that Overwatch kind of needs to take a little bit of the limelight on this one.
Okay.
I'd still expect to see a new cinematic. I still expect to see something of the tier of maps or larger, and I still expect Overwatch League to be a huge part of it. But if they don't want to steal the spotlight with a new hero, which is just going to, Overwatch is a huge game, a new hero for it is a big news story.
That would be massive.
They don't want to overshadow a WoW expansion or even, compete with a WoW expansion in that way, when they could just announce a new Overwatch hero 2 weeks later or 3 weeks later and have all of the same level of press on it without, having to overshadow their own content. So all of that put together would say to me there isn't actually going to be a new hero at BlizzCon, which completely disagrees with what we said last week, of course. But there you go. But there's other reasons as well. Like there's no great need for a new hero right now.
No,
Mercy is sort of a new hero on her own. Yeah. Doomfist is still fairly new. So yeah, that's kind of the run up and some amount of what I expect to see at BlizzCon.
Okay, cool. Well, fascinating stuff. New BlizzCon hero, no new BlizzCon hero. Let us know what you think. Are you excited for any of our predictions? Do you think they're going to come true? Let us know in the comments.
We will be. I'll be keeping myself accountable on this.
I'm sure you will.
I'll make notes and I'll come back to this on each episode.
Job on the line? No.
Maybe.
Let's not do that.
I'll talk to Joel.
Thanks very much for watching. As always, like, share, and subscribe. Follow the channel for new Overwatch updates and new Overwatch This episodes. And we'll see you next time. Take care.